We often talk about the fall of Rome as if it were a single event, a sudden collapse. But the reality is far more nuanced, a slow unraveling of a complex tapestry woven over centuries. Imagine a world where the known order, the bedrock of civilization as you understand it, begins to crumble. Not with a bang, but a protracted sigh, a drawn-out process of decay and transformation. This isn't just the story of crumbling stones and toppled statues. It's the story of how Europe was forged in the crucible of Rome's decline. It's a story of surprising resilience, unexpected adaptation, and the birth of something new from the ashes of the old. In 476 CE, the last Western Roman emperor, Romulus Augustulus, was deposed. But the empire wasn't simply extinguished like a candle in the wind. Think of it as a vast, interconnected network slowly losing power. Different regions fell under the sway of various Germanic tribes. The Visigoths in Spain, the Ostrogoths in Italy, the Vandals in North Africa. Imagine the confusion, the uncertainty, the sheer scale of the disruption. Local populations now found themselves under new rulers, new customs, new languages. This fragmentation wasn't merely political, it was cultural, economic, and social. A gradual, grinding process of decline reshaped the landscape of Europe. Out of the chaos of a fragmented Europe, a new order began to emerge. Feudalism. Imagine a world without centralized authority where security is a luxury. Power becomes localized, personal. Local lords offer protection to those who swear allegiance. Land becomes the currency of power. Lords grant land for military service, creating interlocking loyalties. Peasants work for the lord's benefit in exchange for protection. Feudalism evolved organically out of necessity. It reinforced inequality, with power concentrated in a few hands. Survival, not ambition, was the primary motivator. The collapse of Roman infrastructure and the fragmentation of political authority had a profound impact on European culture and economy. Imagine cities once bustling with trade and intellectual activity now falling into disrepair. The great Roman roads, once symbols of imperial power, crumble into disuse. Trade networks that had spanned the Mediterranean wither, replaced by localized barter systems. The intellectual life that had flourished under Roman patronage enters a period of decline. Libraries are scattered, educational institutions collapse, and the art of writing becomes a rare skill, preserved primarily within the walls of monasteries. This period, often referred to as the Dark Ages, wasn't a time of complete intellectual darkness, but it was undoubtedly a time of significant cultural and economic contraction. The loss of centralized authority and the disruption of trade led to a decline in living standards for many. The world became smaller, more localized, more focused on survival than on intellectual pursuits. The knowledge and technologies of the Roman era weren't entirely lost, but they were certainly less widely disseminated. Imagine the frustration of scholars and artisans struggling to preserve the fragments of a lost world in the face of widespread illiteracy and dwindling resources. This wasn't simply a decline in material wealth, it was a decline in the very infrastructure of knowledge itself. This period of decline, while often portrayed as a time of stagnation, was also a period of adaptation. New forms of social organization emerged, new technologies were developed, and new cultural expressions took root. The seeds of a future Renaissance were being sown in the fertile ground of decline. Chapter 4. The Eastern Roman Empire endures. While the Western Roman Empire fragmented and declined, its eastern counterpart, the Byzantine Empire, continued to thrive. Centered in Constantinople, a city of immense wealth and cultural sophistication, the Byzantine Empire preserved many aspects of Roman law, administration, and culture. Imagine a world where the Roman flame still flickered brightly, a beacon of continuity in a world of change. The Byzantine emperors saw themselves as the inheritors of the Roman legacy, and they worked to maintain Roman traditions and institutions. They spoke Greek, not Latin, and their culture was infused with Eastern influences, but they maintained a direct link to the Roman past. The Byzantine Empire wasn't simply a relic of a bygone era. It was a dynamic and evolving society, a major player in the political and economic landscape of the Mediterranean world. It was a center of trade, a hub of intellectual activity, and a bulwark against the rising power of Islam. Its emperors ruled over a vast territory, encompassing much of the eastern Mediterranean and the Balkans. Imagine the bustling markets of Constantinople, the glittering mosaics of its churches, the complex diplomacy of its imperial court. The Byzantine Empire was a world unto itself, a world that preserved and transformed the Roman legacy in ways that would profoundly influence the future of Europe. Chapter 5. The Spread of Christianity. In the midst of political fragmentation and cultural decline, Christianity emerged as a unifying force in Europe. Imagine a world where shared faith transcends political boundaries, where a common spiritual language connects disparate communities. The Church, with its network of bishops and monasteries, provided a measure of continuity and stability in a world that had lost its center. Monasteries became repositories of knowledge, preserving ancient texts and fostering scholarship. They also served as centers of social welfare, providing education, healthcare, and refuge to the poor and vulnerable. The spread of Christianity wasn't a uniform process. It took different forms in different regions, adapting to local customs and beliefs. Missionaries traveled throughout Europe, spreading the gospel and establishing new churches. The conversion of Germanic tribes played a crucial role in the integration of these new populations into the evolving European landscape. Imagine the impact of this new faith on people's lives, offering solace in a time of uncertainty, providing a framework for understanding the world, and fostering a sense of community. The Church wasn't simply a religious institution, it was a social, political, and cultural force that shaped the very fabric of European society. Chapter 6. The Carolingian Renaissance. In the late 8th and early 9th centuries, a glimmer of the old Roman order seemed to reappear in the form of Charlemagne, king of the Franks. A towering figure, both literally and figuratively, Charlemagne united much of Western Europe under his rule. Imagine a world where, after centuries of fragmentation, a new empire begins to emerge, a conscious attempt to revive the glories of the Roman past. Charlemagne wasn't simply a conqueror, he was a patron of learning and culture. He established schools, encouraged scholarship, and sought to revive the intellectual traditions of the Roman Empire. This period, known as the Carolingian Renaissance, wasn't a full-blown revival of classical learning, but it was a significant step towards the recovery of lost knowledge. It was a conscious effort to reclaim the past, to rebuild the intellectual infrastructure that had been shattered by the fall of Rome. Imagine the excitement of scholars, rediscovering ancient texts, copying manuscripts, and sharing their knowledge with a new generation. The Carolingian Renaissance was a brief but important chapter in the long story of Europe's intellectual development, a bridge between the ancient world and the emerging medieval world. It was a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit can strive for knowledge and understanding. Chapter 7. Emergence of New Kingdoms. Out of the remnants of the Roman Empire and the Carolingian experiment, new kingdoms began to emerge. These weren't simply miniature versions of the Roman Empire. They were new political entities, shaped by local conditions and evolving traditions. The Kingdom of France, the Holy Roman Empire, the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms in England. These were distinct political entities, each with its own unique character. Imagine a world where the map of Europe is being redrawn, where new power centers emerge, and new national identities begin to take shape. These new kingdoms weren't static entities. They were constantly evolving, their boundaries shifting, their internal dynamics changing. They were often at war with each other, vying for territory and influence. But they were also engaged in trade and cultural exchange, contributing to the complex tapestry of European society. This wasn't a period of grand, unified narratives. It was a period of local stories, of regional variations, of competing claims to power and legitimacy. It was a world in flux, a world of constant change, a world where the seeds of modern Europe were being sown. Chapter 8. Long-term impact on modern Europe. The fall of Rome wasn't simply an ending, it was a beginning. It was the catalyst for a series of transformations that would shape the future of Europe. The fragmentation of the Roman Empire led to the emergence of new political entities, new forms of social organization, and new cultural expressions. Imagine a world where the old order has been swept away and the future is unwritten. The fall of Rome created a vacuum, a space for experimentation and innovation. The feudal system, while often seen as static and hierarchical, also allowed for local autonomy and the development of regional identities. The spread of Christianity provided a unifying force in a fragmented world, while the Carolingian Renaissance laid the groundwork for the intellectual revival of the High Middle Ages. The emergence of new kingdoms, while often accompanied by conflict and instability, also fostered competition and innovation. This wasn't a linear progression from decline to progress. It was a complex and messy process, filled with setbacks and unexpected turns. But it was a process that ultimately led to the development of the modern European nation-state system. Outro echoes of Rome. The legacy of Rome continues to resonate in modern Europe. From the legal systems of many European countries to the architectural styles of its cities, the influence of Rome is undeniable. But the fall of Rome also reminds us that even the greatest empires are not immune to decline and transformation. It teaches us that change is inevitable and that adaptation is essential for survival. The story of post-Roman Europe is a story of resilience, of innovation, and of the enduring power of the human spirit to create something new from the ashes of the old. It's a story that continues to unfold, shaping the world we live in today.